So when I first started this Hifdh journey, I didn't really know what to expect, but now that it's been over a year, I can kind of give some lessons that might be a benefit to you. And one of them being is that missing a day of memorizing costs way more than you might think. Because the way I used to think about it was like, okay, if I miss a day of memorizing this page, it's only going to throw maybe the end of my Hifdh off just by one extra day. It's not too big of a deal. But you don't realize that you lose the entire momentum. And also, if you reached a particular page and then you end up skipping a day, your memorization of that whole surah, that whole previous page, probably just watered down a lot. And then it adds maybe another few days of you just having to strengthen. So it's way better, in my opinion, to just really try to stay on that path, to stay consistent, and to stay, even if it's a little bit of time, to at least familiarize with yourself with that particular page you were on every single day at the minimum. The more I memorize, I'm kind of seeing the wisdom behind the Quran because, it is easy to memorize. We've made the Quran easy to memorize, but at the same time, it requires a lot of revision. So it's kind of like, even though it's easy to memorize, you still need to frequently be on top of it, or else you'll just completely forget what you have memorized. This is kind of the wisdom behind the Quran, that you always are going to be exposed to it throughout your life. You're never going to reach a point where you're like, okay, I'm done, I memorized. You're always going to need to frequently revise and stuff like that. And even when you do that, it's giving you reminders. It's always reminding you throughout your day. Even if you've been memorizing for years and years and years, you still need to revise it. And this brings me to my second point, where there's really no shortcuts in this Hifdh journey. I remember in the beginning, I tried so many things, like researching the best tactics, tried doing like a ton of tactics. And in reality, they all kind of work. Every person can do their own tactic and it might work for them. But at the end of the day, it really just comes down to the hours you're putting into the Quran. You might have a memorization tactic that might save you an extra 20 minutes or 30 minutes, or maybe you can revise pretty fast, and that's all cool. But at the end of the day, no matter who you are, no matter what your tactic is, you're still gonna need to put those hundreds and hundreds of hours into memorizing. And that kind of leads me to the next point, where don't get intimidated by Hifdh in the beginning, because now that I just said stuff like that, it might have someone thinking, oh wait, this is like really difficult. This might throw my entire schedule off. When in reality, that's what kind of discourages a lot of people from ever starting memorization. It's really sad because when I started memorizing and I reached like Juz 5, I started thinking, I was like, wait, there's way more people who can maybe complete the entire Quran out there who just never even tried. And I thought, if I could get to like 5 Juz or 6 Juz, whatever, and keep going, imagine how many people had a head start who could easily maybe finish the Quran in just a year, 2 years, 3 years, maybe even some people in a few months, and they just didn't really care. So that's really to say, is don't get discouraged, or don't think that you're too less to memorize the Quran, because everyone started from ground zero. I literally started not even knowing how to read Arabic. I never even went to like the madrasas when I was a kid or anything like that. And that kind of put the belief in my head when I started like, oh, I don't think I'm ready for this, or I'm built for this. When in reality, it was just all a delusion. It was all just thoughts in my mind that, once you get that past that initial hurdle, a lot of it becomes just smooth. And this also brings me to my next point, which is actually investing in yourself and investing in your Hifdh journey. When I first started memorizing, I didn't have a Quran teacher, and I was just leaving it up to my emotions. Like some days I would memorize, some days I wouldn't. Some days I would go maybe a few days without memorizing it all and then forget, or I would just, have improper tajweed and stuff like that. All because I was just like unwilling to actually try to find a teacher online, pay them, and to just kind of, get a Quran coach essentially. It wasn't until I did that like a few months into the journey, where I'm not even lying, my progress, not only in terms of like the quality of my memorization, but also the speed of it really just started skyrocketing. Because let's be honest, it's in human nature to do the like absolute least effort, to kind of be lazy. But once you have someone and once you have that accountability, that's when everything kind of changes. So if you're also looking for that accountability, by the way, we've created a community for that, where you can join calls on the weekends and inshallah present what you memorize. And when you do this, you kind of feel that sense of urgency of, okay, I got to memorize more, on top of also being corrected with, tajweed and stuff like that. All the money and stuff is totally temporary, but when you actually invest in these skills, they actually can live forever. Because let's say you invest in these skills and you actually acquire the skill of Quran, you acquire the skill, it could even be like Arabic, something like that. You're going to be the person who's teaching your family, teaching your kids. And inshallah, in the akhirah, you get all the rewards of this. So don't kind of be like me in the beginning, where I was really kind of reluctant. Oh, I got to drop this much on a Quran teacher, on an Arabic teacher, something like that. All that kind of way of thinking is totally negative. And at the end of it, you will really have no regrets, and I can promise you that. And how many times in the Quran where it even says stuff that's similar to this, مَنْ ذَا الَّذِي يُقْرِضُ اللَّهَ قَرْضًا حَسَنًا فَيُضَاعِفُ لَهُ أَضْعَافًا كَثِيرًا. Whoever, puts a good loan to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that loan gets multiplied, right? So even though you might have to, spend a little bit to invest in these skills, and especially if you're really starting from ground zero, it might take a little bit of time, investment as well, just money. But all of this, you just reap it. Even in this dunya, it's not just in the akhirah, but even in this dunya, you'll feel the reward of doing that. And even just when you see yourself, sometimes when I look back at the videos when I was first meeting with my teacher, I'm like, wow, that's a lot of progress. Maybe you actually feel good that you were making progress in something that was beneficial this whole time. So I'll definitely say, don't a mistake that I made was, don't delay that. Don't delay looking for a teacher, especially if you see it yourself as kind of like me, where if it's up to yourself, you don't really make that much. You make progress, but it's kind of slow. You just memorize on your own time, but it's not it's not like a real program. Whereas I'm the type of person where I need if there's any skill I want, I need to do it with someone else, because I know I'll progress way faster. And I think most people are like that. So inshallah, that was a benefit. Assalamu alaikum.